My sister stood up at my birthday dinner and announced she was pregnant with my husband's baby. But what she didn't know was that I already knew everything and I came prepared. What happened next turned a night of betrayal into the beginning of my freedom. If you've ever been blindsided by the people you trusted most, a partner, a sibling, even your own parents, then you know the kind of pain that knocks the air out of your lungs and makes you question everything. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about family dynamics that have been broken for years, about how deep childhood wounds can bleed into our adult relationships. And most of all, it's about what happens when one woman decides she's finally done being the one everyone walks over. In this video, I'm sharing the full journey, from the shocking public betrayal to the private strength it took to rebuild my life from scratch on my terms. If you've ever felt alone in your pain, or if you're trying to heal from betrayal that came from inside your own home, I promise you, you are not alone. By the end of this video, you'll see how sometimes the worst day of your life can actually become the start of something far better. If you've ever been through something similar, drop a comment and share your story. Someone out there might need to hear it. And if this resonates with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real, raw, and empowering stories about healing, boundaries, and becoming the version of yourself no one thought you could be. My name is Samantha, but most people just call me Sam. For most of my life, I was the stable one in my family, the responsible daughter, the quiet sister, the one everyone leaned on but rarely asked how I was doing. I married young, worked hard, kept our home running, and supported my husband Kyle through every twist and turn of his career. And my sister, Jessica? She was the opposite. Loud, dramatic, magnetic. The kind of person who could light up a room or burn it down. We were never exactly close. Growing up, Jessica always seemed to want whatever I had: my clothes, my friends, even my attention from our parents. I used to brush it off as harmless sibling rivalry. I thought we'd grow out of it. I was wrong. Let me take you back to the night that changed everything. It was my 31st birthday. Kyle had planned a dinner with my family at a beautiful restaurant downtown. The setting was perfect: warm lighting, soft music, everyone dressed up. For once, I felt like maybe things were going to be okay. That all the years of effort, the compromises, the sacrifices were finally paying off. I didn't know it yet, but I was walking into a trap. Midway through the dinner, after the food had been served and the small talk had worn thin, Jessica stood up. She raised her glass with a nervous smile and said she had something to share. "I'm pregnant," she announced, placing a hand gently on her stomach. There was a pause, that kind of strange silence where everyone's mind races but no one speaks. Then she looked directly at Kyle. "And Kyle is the father." I wish I could say I blacked out, that I screamed, that I threw a drink in her face or stormed out, but I didn't. I just sat there, calm, because I already knew. I had known for weeks. I had seen the texts, the hotel reservations, the way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. And I had come prepared. The room erupted. My mom gasped so hard she literally clutched her pearls. My dad just stared. Kyle turned pale. And Jessica for once looked unsure. "We didn't mean for it to happen," she said quickly. "It just did. I didn't want to tell you like this, but I thought with the family here, it would be easier." Easier? On her, maybe. But definitely not on me. I looked at her, then at Kyle, and I simply said, "That's interesting. Because the baby isn't even his." The words hit like a slap. Jessica's face crumpled. "What are you talking about?" she asked. And that's when the truth came out. There had been someone else. Another married man, before Kyle. And based on the timing, it was far more likely that he was the father. Jessica's silence told us everything. My dad put his face in his hands. My mom kept whispering, "I don't understand." Kyle, who had spent the last 10 minutes looking like he'd seen a ghost, finally spoke up. "You told me I was the only one," he said to Jessica, his voice low. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Was I just another thing you took from your sister? That was the moment everything shifted. It wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about a lifetime of taking. A lifetime of being second to my sister's chaos. Of staying quiet, keeping the peace, while she spun webs and played the victim. I had spent years minimizing myself to keep others comfortable. But not anymore. I stood up, smoothed down my dress, and said, "Kyle, my attorney will contact you next week. In the meantime, please stay somewhere else." He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. "You made your choice months ago. You just didn't have the courage to tell me to my face." Then I turned to Jessica. I looked at her, really looked, and I finally saw it. The insecurity behind the bravado. The need to win, to feel wanted, to be seen. But I wasn't going to be her emotional punching bag anymore. "I'm not leaving anything behind, Jess," I told her. "I'm walking away. There's a difference." As I left the restaurant, the weight on my shoulders didn't disappear, but it shifted. For the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself. I had been betrayed by the two people closest to me. But I had also been set free. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel instead. The room was quiet, the bed unfamiliar, but it was mine. My phone buzzed nonstop messages from Kyle, Jessica, even my mom. I ignored them. I called my lawyer, Patricia, the next morning. "It's time," I told her. "I want to file the papers today." And that was just the beginning. Because what followed wasn't just a divorce, it was a transformation not just of my life, but of me. And if you've ever been through betrayal like this, or you're in the middle of it now, just know, it doesn't have to destroy you. Sometimes it breaks you open just enough to finally rebuild on your own terms. Back at the hotel, I tried to rest, but sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying every moment from dinner, Jessica's announcement, Kyle's silence, my parents' stunned faces. But underneath all the noise, there was also a strange calm. I wasn't stuck anymore. I wasn't pretending everything was fine. The next morning, I put my phone on silent. 27 missed calls. Texts from Kyle, Jessica, and my mom piled up like debris from an explosion. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called Patricia, my lawyer. "I'm ready," I said. She didn't ask for details. Just gave me a time, 11 a.m. That meeting was the first of many steps I took over the next few days, quiet, focused, deliberate. While the people around me were busy panicking, explaining, defending, I was building my exit. 3 days after the dinner, I returned to the house when I knew Kyle would be at work. I brought 2 friends and a moving company. I didn't take everything. Just what was clearly mine: clothes, books, photos, heirlooms, and furniture I'd owned before the marriage. I left his wedding ring on the nightstand with a short note. "Patricia will contact you regarding the rest." Then I walked out without looking back. I stayed at my friend Megan's place for a while. She cleared out her guest room, made space in her closet, and, more importantly, never once asked me to explain myself. One night, as we unpacked my clothes, she said, "I still can't believe Jessica would do this. I mean, she's your sister." I just shrugged. Jessica's been trying to win a game only she's been playing. And now she's pregnant with another married man's baby. And Kyle? He's showing who he really is. He proved that the day he showed up at Megan's place. Banging on the door, yelling my name, demanding I talk to him. Megan stood beside me, phone in hand, ready to call the cops. I told her not to. He left eventually, shouting, "This isn't fair, you didn't even let me explain." But I didn't need explanations, I needed peace. That night, Jessica called. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Her voice was small. "I need my sister," she said. I stayed quiet. She went on. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm scared. I'm pregnant with a married man's baby, and now Kyle won't return my calls either." I took a deep breath. Part of me hurt for her. The little girl who always needed more love. But that didn't erase what she had done. You needed your sister before you slept with her husband, I said. Now? I hope it was worth it. The next day, my parents called. My mom, still deep in denial, suggested family counseling. Jessica made a mistake, Samantha. But she's still your sister. And she's going to need support with this baby. I didn't yell. I just said, then you support her. I'm done. To my surprise, my dad seemed to understand. You're right to be angry, he said. Don't let it poison your life. I told him I wasn't planning to. That's why I was moving forward. 2 weeks after my birthday, I signed the lease on a new apartment. A clean, modern one-bedroom in a part of the city Kyle always said was too trendy. I painted the walls a soft sage green, a color he hated. I bought a couch that was all mine. I filled the bookshelves with things that made me happy. Slowly, the space started to feel like home. Kyle, of course, didn't go quietly. When he realized I had frozen our joint accounts, he texted, "Wow. Real mature, Sam." I just forwarded the message to Patricia. Meanwhile, Jessica finally told the other married man about her pregnancy. According to my mother, he denied everything and threatened to expose her if she tried to pin the baby on him. She's all alone in this, my mom said. Surely, you can find some compassion. I said. My compassion is currently busy helping me heal. Week by week, the noise faded. At work, I threw myself into projects, volunteering for everything I could. One of my coworkers, David from the creative department, started leaving coffee on my desk in the mornings with little notes. Hang in there. You're stronger than you think. I didn't think much of it at first. But the kindness meant something, especially on the hard days. 3 weeks in, Jessica showed up at my new apartment. I have no idea how she found my address. She looked different, tired, messy, eyes swollen. Kyle's seeing someone else. She blurted when I opened the door. Someone from his office. I almost laughed. Yes, Jessica. I can believe that. Men who cheat don't suddenly become loyal just because they cheated with you. She looked like I'd slapped her. I thought he loved me. I thought we were different. I leaned against the door. What do you want from me? Advice? Sympathy? A place to stay until the next disaster? She wiped her face. I just want my sister back. I know I don't deserve it, but I miss you, Sam, and I'm really sorry. For a second, I hesitated. This was still my sister. My only sibling. The girl I once shared a room with. But I had to protect myself first. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. Maybe someday. But not now. I need space. She nodded. I understand. But if you ever change your mind, I'll be here. As she walked away, I felt a strange mix of sadness and freedom. For once, I had set the terms. I wasn't just reacting, I was choosing. Healing wasn't quick or easy, but it had begun. And what came next would be mine to decide. A few more weeks passed, and slowly, the pieces of my life began settling into place. The silence that once felt so heavy in my new apartment started to feel like peace. I filled it with music I liked, cooked meals just for myself, and discovered the small joys of being alone but not lonely. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing. Then, one morning, Patricia called. Kyle finally signed the divorce papers, she said. It's done. He agreed to everything outlined in the prenup. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It's almost never this clean, she added. Usually there's more fighting. I gave a small laugh. There's been plenty of that, just not in court. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine and sat out on my small balcony, wrapped in a blanket, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in a long time, I felt still, whole, even. My phone buzzed with a message from David. Some of us are grabbing drinks tomorrow. No pressure, but we'd love to see you. I smiled. I wasn't ready for anything serious, but I appreciated the way he never pushed. Just small gestures. Thoughtful. Kind. The kind of attention that didn't take anything from me but gently gave back. A few days later, a letter arrived at my door. Handwritten. No return address. I almost didn't open it, but the handwriting looked familiar. It was from Jessica. And it wasn't what I expected. "I've been in therapy," she wrote, "trying to understand why I've spent my life chasing what you had instead of building something for myself. Our parents always made me feel like I had to be extra loud, extra successful, extra dramatic to be seen. Well, you were loved just for being steady. I was jealous of that. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just understanding. I'm trying to do better, for Leo." I read the letter 3 times. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was something. A crack in the wall she'd always kept up. 2 weeks later, I visited her and the baby. I didn't promise anything. I didn't even know what I felt. But Leo was beautiful. Big, curious eyes and a tiny dimple in his cheek. He looked nothing like Kyle, which, oddly, helped. Jessica was softer, now tired, but different. More grounded. As I handed her the baby, she asked, "Would you consider being his godmother? I want him to have strong women in his life. Someone like you." I didn't answer right away. But later that evening, I texted her, yes. Rebuilding anything with her would take time. Maybe it wouldn't work. But I was open to the possibility. And that was more than I ever thought I'd feel again toward her. My parents, meanwhile, continued to walk their own path through the wreckage. My mom still tried to keep things normal, like we were a family that just needed a bit of glue. But my dad surprised me one night over dinner. "We didn't mean to play favorites," he said. "Jessica always seemed like the one who needed more. You were so steady. We thought you didn't need us in the same way, but I see now we hurt you by not seeing you at all. It wasn't everything. But it was something. A start." I began to thrive at work, too. Pouring my focus into new campaigns, mentoring younger teammates, stepping into leadership. I got promoted. And with that came a different kind of confidence, one that wasn't based on anyone else's approval. Just mine. David and I started spending more time together. Not in a rush. Just quiet moments. Coffee runs. Casual dinners. Walks after work. No drama. No big declarations. Just ease. I found myself looking forward to those moments. Trusting that whatever came next, I'd be okay. Kyle eventually moved to Denver. Took a job with a new company. According to mutual friends, he was dating again. I felt nothing when I heard that. Not anger, not regret, just distance. Like he belonged to a different chapter in a book I no longer needed to reread. Jessica told me he hadn't asked about Leo once. That, somehow, didn't surprise me. A year after that infamous birthday dinner, I stood in front of my full-length mirror, adjusting the neckline of a new dress. My apartment no longer felt new. It felt like mine. The walls held memories of late-night calls with friends, tears cried into pillows, and laughter I never thought would return. I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me, but in a good way. I had changed. Stronger. Wiser. Clearer. The doorbell rang. David was taking me to dinner, a small celebration with friends for my birthday. A new tradition. A reclaiming of the date. When I opened the door, he smiled. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," I replied, meaning it more than he knew. He handed me a small gift wrapped in gold paper. Inside was a leather-bound journal. On the first page was a quote handwritten in pen. "The most beautiful people are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths." Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. My eyes misted. "It's perfect," I whispered. As we headed out, I felt a calm joy settle in my chest. This birthday wasn't about presents or parties, it was about presence. About honoring how far I'd come. As we walked into the restaurant, my friends greeted me with warm smiles and cheers. This was my chosen family. People who loved me without needing anything from me. No secrets, no betrayals, just celebration. And for the first time in a long time, I took my place at the center of the table, not with hesitation, but with pride. This was my life. Imperfect, rebuilt, and entirely my own. That birthday dinner with my friends turned out to be more than just a celebration. It felt like closure. Not the kind that ties everything up in a perfect bow, but the kind that says, "You've made it through. You're okay now. Keep going." Sitting at the center of that table, surrounded by people who saw me, who had stayed through the storm without asking me to shrink myself or pretend, I realized how far I had come. I wasn't just recovering anymore. I was living, building something new, something mine. In the days that followed, I leaned into the rhythm of my new life. Mornings were quiet and peaceful. I brewed my own coffee, read a few pages from the journal David gave me, and wrote when I felt like it. Some mornings, I jotted down affirmations. Other days, I poured out my thoughts about forgiveness, grief, and hope. I didn't force myself to heal on a timeline. I let it unfold naturally. Work was going better than ever. My team was thriving. I was mentoring new hires, helping them find their voices, just like I was finding mine. People started coming to me for advice not just about campaigns or strategies, but about confidence, boundaries, and how to stay grounded during chaos. It felt good to be trusted. It felt even better to know that I had something to offer outside of who I used to be. David and I started seeing more of each other, slowly and intentionally. There were no grand declarations, no pressure to define anything too quickly. Just the comfort of good company. Sunday mornings spent walking through the farmer's market, quiet dinners where we talked about everything and nothing. There was a softness to him that made me feel safe. Not because he promised anything, but because he never made me feel like I had to earn his kindness. One afternoon, Jessica texted me a photo of Leo. He was lying on a blanket in the grass, staring up at the sky with his wide, curious eyes. She wrote, "He laughed today. Like really laughed. I thought you'd want to know." I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't sure what I felt, something between warmth and sadness. Later that evening, I replied, "Thanks for sharing. He looks happy." That was how we rebuilt things. Slowly. One small message at a time. There were no long emotional talks, no sudden reconciliations. Just small signs of effort. She was still in therapy. Still working through her patterns. Sometimes she sent me quotes from books she was reading or shared a hard truth she'd uncovered in a session. I didn't always reply, but I read every word. One weekend, she invited me to meet her at the park. "No pressure," she said. "Just us and Leo, no big talks, just being around each other." I agreed. Leo had started babbling by then, reaching out to grab everything in sight. When he reached for my hand, I let him wrap his tiny fingers around mine. Something shifted in that moment. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a softening. Jessica sat beside me on the bench, watching him. "I used to think I had to win at everything," she said. "Be the prettiest, the funniest, the one people remembered, and then I'd still feel empty afterward. It never filled the hole." I didn't say anything, just listened. She continued, "I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I just hope, maybe one day, we can rebuild something real." I nodded. Maybe one day. That was honest. That was enough for now. A few months later, our parents invited us to dinner. I hesitated at first. The idea of sitting around a table again, even in a different restaurant, triggered something tight in my chest. But I said yes. Part of me wanted to see if things could be different. That night, it wasn't perfect, but it was better. My dad, once silent and passive, made an effort to include me in every conversation. My mom, for once, didn't try to gloss over the past. When dessert came, she reached across the table and said, "I know I've failed both of you in different ways. I'm trying to change. I hope you can give me time." I didn't expect that, but I appreciated it. After dinner, Jessica and I walked out together. She looked up at the sky, then at me. I think this is the first time we've all been together without it ending in tears or yelling, she said. I smiled. Progress. Later that week, I got a text from her. Just 3 words. Thank you, Sam. I didn't reply right away. But a day later, I wrote back. You're welcome. My life wasn't perfect, but it felt honest. And that made all the difference. I was learning to trust myself again to make decisions that honored my needs, my peace, my joy. The old version of me would have kept bending, pleasing, overextending. The new me had boundaries. And those boundaries didn't push people away, they let the right ones in. The last page of my journal was nearly full. On a quiet evening, I sat with it open on my lap, flipping through the entries. So much heartbreak. So much growth. On the final page, I wrote, I thought my world ended that night at dinner. But it didn't. It just cracked open. And through those cracks, light came in. I don't have all the answers, but I have myself. And that's enough. As I closed the journal and looked around my apartment, my sanctuary, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Not just for surviving, but for choosing to rise, to rebuild, to believe that something beautiful could come from something broken. And you know what? It had. About 2 months after that journal entry, I found myself standing at the edge of something new again. Not chaos this time, but possibility. David and I had been spending more time together. Slowly, intentionally. There were no grand declarations. No talk of, what are we? We were simply 2 people who enjoyed each other's presence, growing into something steady. One Saturday morning, he asked if I wanted to join him on a weekend getaway with a few of his friends from college. Nothing fancy, just a cabin by the lake. I hesitated. That old version of me, the one who would have said no out of guilt or obligation, was gone. So I said yes. And that weekend turned out to be exactly what I didn't know I needed. The lake was quiet, framed by pine trees and the sound of laughter from people who genuinely liked each other. I watched couples play cards, cook together, and share stories around a bonfire. There was no drama, no competition. Just warmth. One night, while we were sitting near the fire, David handed me a mug of hot cider and looked at me with that calm, steady gaze of his. You're not who I expected, he said softly. You're stronger than most people I've ever met. I looked at him, unsure how to respond. No one had ever said that to me so plainly. I smiled. I think I'm finally becoming who I was always meant to be. When we got back to the city, I felt lighter. Like I had put down something heavy. Not because of David, but because I was finally allowing joy again. Real joy. The kind that doesn't ask you to ignore the past, but walks beside it. Back at work, things were shifting too. I was offered a chance to lead a new initiative, something that would bring more mentorship opportunities to women in our industry. I didn't hesitate this time. I said yes. And as I stood in front of a small group of junior employees during our first session, I realized I wasn't just rebuilding my own life. I was helping others find their footing too. That was more fulfilling than any promotion or paycheck. Jessica and I were still cautious around each other, but there were signs of real progress. She invited me to Leo's first birthday. I said I'd think about it. The morning of the party, I woke up and stared at the invitation on my fridge. I thought about that little boy, innocent in all of this, and decided to go not for Jessica, not for closure, but for myself. I didn't stay long. Just enough to say hello, bring a gift, and hold Leo for a few quiet minutes. He looked up at me and smiled, one of those pure baby smiles that cuts through every wall. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're going to be just fine." As I left the party, Jessica followed me outside. "Thanks for coming," she said. "It means more than you know." I nodded. "He's a good kid." She hesitated. "I know I still have a long way to go. I want you to know I'm trying." I looked at her, this woman who had once caused so much pain. I believed her. Or at least, I believed she meant it in that moment. Keep trying, I said. That's all any of us can do. Later that night, I called my dad. We talked about life, about Leo, about how strange and full and complicated everything had become. He said, "You know, I'm proud of you, Sam. Not just for getting through it, but for how you did it." That stayed with me, not because I needed his approval, but because I had stopped waiting for it. Hearing it now just felt like a bonus. Weeks turned into months. The days blended in that calm, adult kind of way where nothing explodes but everything quietly blooms. I started hosting small dinners at my apartment. Just friends, food, music, no tension, no eggshells. Sometimes David came, sometimes he didn't. We had both grown comfortable with giving each other space. And in that space, something real was growing. One night, while we were cleaning up after everyone left, he looked at me and said, "I love this version of you. Not the perfect one, the honest one." I laughed. "She's still a work in progress." He kissed my forehead. "Aren't we all?" The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the windows and realized I hadn't thought about Kyle in weeks. Not in anger, not in sadness, just not at all. He was part of my story, but he didn't own it anymore. Neither did Jessica, or my parents, or the expectations I used to carry like bricks in my chest. This life was mine now. Built piece by piece with intention. With truth. I didn't need everything to be perfect. I just needed it to be real. And real, it turns out, is enough. 1 year to the day after that unforgettable birthday dinner, I stood in my kitchen, placing candles on a small chocolate cake I'd picked up from my favorite bakery. The same date that once marked betrayal now felt like something different, something reclaimed. My phone buzzed with messages from friends. "Happy birthday, Sam. So proud of you. You've come so far." I smiled as I read them, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun pouring through my windows. This year, everything felt. I had invited a small group over that evening. Nothing extravagant. Just the people who had shown up for me when everything fell apart. The people who stayed. David was bringing a bottle of wine and his signature homemade guacamole. Megan was already on her way, promising to bring extra candles, just in case we burned the first batch too fast from all the wishmaking. I took a moment to stand by the window, watching the city move below me. I thought about where I had been exactly 1 year ago, sitting at a table, cutting into birthday cake while my life unraveled around me. And yet, here I was, still standing. Stronger, wiser, softer in the right places, sharper in others. I wasn't the same woman who smiled through betrayal. I was someone who had learned when to speak up, when to walk away, and when to start again. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find David, holding flowers and smiling in that gentle way of his. "Happy birthday, Sam," he said, handing me the bouquet. "You look peaceful." I laughed softly. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. He stepped inside, placing the wine on the counter. "It's the truth. You're not carrying the weight anymore." Later, as we all gathered around the table, candles flickering and laughter spilling into every corner of the room, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. Not just safe in my surroundings, but safe in myself. My boundaries were no longer walls, they were the foundation. My solitude was no longer loneliness, it was clarity. At one point, Megan raised her glass and said, "To Sam. For choosing herself, even when it was hard. And for reminding us that healing isn't always pretty, but it is always possible." Everyone clinked their glasses, and I felt my throat tighten with emotion. Not because I was sad, but because I finally understood something I'd been chasing my whole life. Real love doesn't demand we shrink ourselves, it invites us to be whole. When the night wound down and the last guest had left, David lingered behind to help clean up. We stood side by side at the sink, washing dishes in comfortable silence. He handed me a towel and said, "Do you ever think about what your life might have looked like if none of it happened?" I paused. Sometimes, but I don't stay there long, because if none of it happened, I might still be pretending. I might still be trying to earn love I already deserved. He nodded slowly. You've built something beautiful here. I looked around the apartment at the art on the walls, the cozy lighting, the plants I hadn't killed. Yeah, I said. I really have. Later that night, curled up on the couch with my journal, I wrote a single sentence. This is what it feels like to come home to yourself. And that's what I want you, whoever's listening or watching, to take from all this. You might be in the middle of your own unraveling right now. Maybe it's betrayal, maybe it's loss. Maybe it's simply realizing that something or someone you thought you needed no longer fits the life you're meant to live. Whatever it is, I want you to know that the pain doesn't get the final word. You do. It won't be instant. It won't be easy. But if you keep choosing yourself, even in small ways, one day you'll look back and realize the breaking was just the beginning. The start of becoming someone who no longer begs to be chosen because they've already chosen themselves. So here's to the hard choices, the quiet growth, the imperfect healing. Here's to walking away when staying would cost you your peace. And here's to birthdays that no longer sting, but sing with laughter, love, and a life you built on your own terms. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me through every twist, every heartbreak, and every quiet victory. This wasn't just a story about betrayal or a broken marriage. It was a story about what happens when you choose yourself after years of shrinking. It was about walking through fire and realizing you didn't burn, you transformed. Life doesn't always fall apart in one dramatic moment. Sometimes, it unravels slowly. A glance that lingers too long. A silence that lasts too many days. A birthday dinner that explodes your reality. But here's the truth. Every ending creates space for something new. Sometimes, we need to lose what we thought we wanted so we can discover what we truly deserve. If you're going through something hard, if someone has betrayed you, or you've been made to feel small, please remember this. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to start over. And you are not defined by who hurt you. You're defined by how you rise afterward. And you will rise. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not loudly. But one quiet, brave step at a time. So as this story ends, I hope it leaves you with something more than just shock or drama. I hope it leaves you with hope. That even after the worst kind of pain, healing is possible. Joy is possible. A new beginning is possible. And if this story reminded you of something in your own life, something you've overcome, or maybe something you're still working through, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment and share your experience. You never know who else might need to hear your voice. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're building a space here for real stories, real healing, and the kind of strength that grows in the shadows. Until next time, take care of your heart and don't be afraid to choose yourself. Again and again.